little more than what we've had in the past, and it's great to see people here. Council, first we'll do roll, and then I want to change something on the agenda. Miss Beck, would you call roll?
Demore, present. Shield,
Here.
Wagner,
Here.
Walker, here, Murphy.
Present. We have a quorum. I'd like you to look at the agenda. The only good thing is we're in the middle of the winter, so, but we'll still get you out of here. Next is the public hearing. It's the receipt of comments concerning programs and services as proposed by the city's downtown management board for 2023 and recommended for financing by use of special assessment method at a 7% rate increase compared to the 2022 formula. And I'd like to turn that over to.
Open the public hearing.
Oh, we'll open it to public comment at this point. You have something you wish to say, address it to council. I'd like your full name, full address, and you'll have the mic for a limited time. Does anybody wish to speak to council regarding this? Okay, is there anybody online? Being that we have no public comment, I close this public hearing. Next is a presentation by Dave Emo. He's the president of the Northern Lakes Economic Alliance. It's been very active in our community. You may have to pick it up, the whole thing. There you go. If I would have known that, we would have asked it for this national anthem. Dave, welcome to City Council. I know you're going to give us a background on where you guys have at and where we're headed.
Excellent, thank you. Just a quick housekeeping slide changer.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Mayor Murphy, city manager, board members of the commission, council, thank you for the invitation to be here tonight to address the council. My objective for tonight is to do kind of a quick orientation of the Northern Lakes Economics Alliance, talk a little bit about activities involved that we're involved with in the city currently, in the past, and currently in the maybe with some consideration for the future. One of the things I really kind of like to do in presentations like this is leave you with some questions. And I think that's important because I think part of what we do here is to kind of challenge some of our thinking today, but also start to look and vision for the future. In 2024, we will celebrate 40 years of impact in Northern Michigan. And this isn't my economic alliance, this is your economic alliance. This belongs to the public, this belongs to the community. So it's an important part of what we do. Our mission has been constant to grow the economy and enhance prosperity, quality of life for all residents in our service region. Slide 2, please. Economic development is the creation of wealth from which benefits are realized. This graphic, recognizing it's a little maybe challenging to see, probably people online can see it easily. Some of us here, but essentially, economic development is a private sector activity. When we talk about kind of difference between economic development versus community development, we look at it in terms of kind of private activity focus or private enterprise focus. Community development is much more of a community or public sector activity. One of the things that we do is the designated economic development organization for the 4-county region is to create that bridge or be that bridge that connects the two in order to increase overall vitality. Next slide, please. As a public-private partnership, we depend on investors to further our mission. And not every entity, public or private sector, are investors today. One of the things I will tell you, though, is that our board has made it a strategic priority for me and our staff to grow the number of both public and private sector investors to grow the impact of our mission across our communities. What we do today has drastically changed from what we did yesterday. What really kind of, and the pandemic has shifted that for a lot of us. What I would say is we historically have been very more narrowly focused in the industrial sector. Our larger employers, what we typically would know as our base job creators in our community, has been our primary focus for a very long time. Coming out of a pandemic environment, it shifted the way communities think, the fabric of communities, and how we as economic developers work within that area. So you can see us more engaged and more involved in things like transportation, housing, childcare. We're trying to figure out how to address those issues. And oftentimes as a result of that, this happened again last week where, you know, one of our township officials in Charlotte Lake Township at a ribbon cutting announced that we were going to solve their housing crisis. Always a challenge. We function much like a cooperative, however, where communities have access to skill sets that they don't have the capacity to employ. So we do that by pulling the skill sets of our team together in order to deliver those that next slide, please. We are structured as an organization. These are kind of a list of some of our core partners, and you can see that Michigan State University Extension with a 30+ year relationship with Michigan State University Extension. Part of their land grant university, part of their mission in terms of community outreach and community connection is around economic vitality. Most people don't know this. I'm actually an employee of Michigan State University and MSU Extension. The only one in our organization that has been a long-standing history in our organization. Our relationship with the MEDC is a critical relationship as it relates to community, both community and economic development. And then you see North Central, Northwest Charlotte. So a lot of our focus historically has been pretty heavily on jobs and space jobs that help our communities grow and thrive. Next slide, please. This is kind of a structure of our board. We have a fairly large board. Our bylaws dictate that our counties and county stakeholders have 5 representatives for appointment. As well as representatives, as you see kind of at the bottom part of the circle, from some of our core partners like Charlotte ISD, North Central, MSU Extension, and then we have some appointments about companies at large. Next slide, please. So, how this is a kind of an important slide. This is your economic development team. We have some of them with us here today. Zen Bailey, Jessica Lobe, Chris Bauer. They are of the staff. We have a complement of 8 full-time and contracted staff. Everybody on the top line is full-time. Folks on the bottom line are contracted staff, with the exception of Eric, who is our broadband specialist, who's a volunteer for our organization. Been with us for a number of years. Each staff member has a unique background that's complementary to our mission. The NLEA adds, management capacity to all of our investor communities. So, like I said, this is kind of our cooperative. These are the folks you have access to from an economic development perspective. That includes services like economic development, grant management, broadband development, grant writing, statistical analysis, and research, accounting, communications, grant administration, and those types of things. Assistance with DDA, or local authority establishment, business assistance, expansion, location, new locations, attraction, growth, things like that. Education and network opportunities. One of the things we started last year was our annual economic symposium, which happens in May. That's a regional event that brings people from outside of the region, across our region together, for more of a regional perspective on some of the drivers of our economy and some of the impacts. So, big drivers that we have in terms of emerging craft beverage industry, the blue economy, how we are shaped and affected and impacted by economic pressures about the economy. Navigating federal, state, and local government rules, regulations is one of the things that one of the critical services we provide for private sector businesses. Next slide, please. So economic development really seeks to increase private investment in the region. Private investment ultimately leads to job creation and opportunities for our residents. These investments also lead to increased tax dollars to our local jurisdictions to provide critical services, water, sewer, weather, other types of infrastructure that we all think about. But it also helps build other types, reinforce other types of critical infrastructure. Our education system, our healthcare system are all beneficiaries of economic development and activities that we have. Having a balanced approach to economic development in Northern Michigan is important. But so much of our industry is around hospitality and tourism. And so trying to create balance within seasonal economies, 12-month economies is one of the challenges that we have. So we have a lot of focus on and watching that balance, even from demographic shifts and statistical shifts, and looking at what's happening in terms of population, wage, salary, health status, and things like that. Private investment also will also take the burden off more residential taxpayers and make living in Northern Michigan more affordable. So as that kind of business and industrial sector grows, which it is, helps to provide a little bit of cushion, if you will, and puts less burden on local taxpayers as a result of that. Next slide. So when it comes to community development, it really speaks to projects that improve quality of life, right? So these can be strongly linked to economic development. We have the saying, community development almost always leads economic development. But these projects speak directly to quality of life. Things like parks, trails, the assets that we have, water, and then again, even things like our education system, public-private education, as well as healthcare and other assets that we have in our communities. When we think about things like waterfront nodes, public improvements that add to the community's identity or sense of place. So place-based economic development is certainly something you're all aware of. It's something that we have to keep focused on as well. So next slide, please. We participated in a number of projects in Emmett County, and specifically the city of Petoskey. We provide a needed link between the private sector and the public sector. So we can help guide projects for the city to a resolution that all parties benefit from. We have a long history of doing that. So in 2018, Emmett County left the alliance, and I wasn't here at that time in this role, and many of us were not in our roles at that time. But that choice impacted the city of Petoskey, and it impacted every local government within the county, as well as every business in the county. Beginning of 2022, this year, Emmett County re-engaged with the Economic Alliance and became an investor and partner in the Economic Alliance. And so we're back here more actively engaged. One thing I would tell you, though, is that even though we were not the designated economic development organization of the county, we continued to maintain some role, minimal role in relationship. During the pandemic, there were 2 rounds of critical business support grants provided through the state using federal dollars. Round 1, we had 133 applications requesting $3.26 million. Of those, there were 10 grants awarded and 1 loan totaling $130,000. You can see that that was what was available to the community or to the region. Certainly way short of what was needed or what was desired. The second round was 174 applications requesting about just under 3 million, about 2.975 million. There were a total of 30 grants, totaling $596,000. So our role in that was to review every one of those 300 grants that came in and help to make an informed choice around what businesses were going to receive that funding. Not always a great position to be in. That's today though, we're working on 2 mixed-use developments in downtown. One startup brewery within the city limits, lots of Lumber Square, Michigan Maple Black Brownfield, County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, housing project on Atkins Road, proximity to the city. And then we're also right now partnering with our core partner, Central Community College, to conduct. It's going to actually occur on Thursday and Friday this week. An in-depth mapping of the entrepreneurial ecosystem across our core region. We know we have a lot of innovation that occurs here. We know that a lot of that innovation isn't really out in the community domain, from the, it's captive to businesses, but we have history, a long history of innovation. So really trying to understand that and understand what are some of the synergies and systems and support to help entrepreneurial economic development take a strong foothold, but also looking at some of the gaps and opportunities that we know we have in our region. So that's a significant area of focus. We're here, we're engaged, we're actively supporting the economic development of the city of Scottsdale. Last slide. So I'm going to wrap it up with leaving you with some considerations for the future. We know that when you look at the demographics, our populations are shifting. They're shifting all across our region. Petoskey and County are shifting significantly. Our population is growing. It creates some challenges for us, things to consider and think about. Our population is growing with individuals who are using more resources than they're contributing historically. So people out of the workforce, right? And so we have less industries to rebuild, grow those assets. And so we have to find kind of that balance and harmony. So that's some of the things we do when we really kind of dig into the numbers. What's the future vision of the community? We know we have long-term, and not just 5 years, but 10 years and 20 years. We have an increase in demand for land use for housing, and we have decrease in land use for industry. So striking that balance is going to create some challenges for all of us as we work together. And then how will we as a government partner together? As the city kind of hits its growth, if you will, proximity of the city boundaries starts to not necessarily approach upon challenges, but with those growth demands start to meet up, how do we manage through them? How do we deal with those issues? So I think those are some really important issues for us to consider going forward. With that, stop.
I have a couple comments. One is I did attend your May symposium at Boyne Mountain. I thought it was excellent. The interaction between agencies as well as legislative members of our state legislation was there. I thought it was a great opportunity, and I saw a real benefit to your symposium and to what you do. Will you be coming back to give us a summary if and when in the next year on where you can identify actual projects that benefit Petoskey? I understand that everything outside the city limits also benefits us, whether it be through people, housing, but you'll be able to come back and give us a summation for the year.
Absolutely, and I think, in an ideal working relationship, work closely with City Manager Horn and his team, Zach and others, they should be able to speak about those things throughout the year.
And the next question, Shane, do we have funding in the budget for 2023?
Yes, I have earmarked funding to re-engage with NLEA proposed for the 2023 budget.
Okay, good. I now go to City Council for discussion. Mr. Moore.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for that presentation. I'm the newbie here. So while that was a very nice presentation for me, I'm still kind of amorphous in terms of if we look at 100% of what you do. As an overview, I heard you say, you know, you build bridges between private and public sector. Would it be possible for you to maybe break that down a little bit for me? It kind of have, what are the slices of the pie that are the components of that?
Yeah, so, the best way for me to describe that is sometimes, businesses, as they're trying to grow, may have challenges with zoning. May run up against, challenges in municipalities with zoning, or perhaps, you know, we have examples. We have a business in Boyne City and an industrial park that actually footprint of sits on two townships and a city. You can imagine as that business has grown over the years, the challenges of working between the three local units of government in terms of infrastructure, 4.5 agreements. You know, local development finance authorities that are instructed to provide the resources to within that industrial park, city of industrial park. I'm sorry, classify correctly as a business park. But within that business park, then to ensure that the infrastructure that's needed for businesses is there today, but they're 20 years from now, as things you know, are used to deteriorate roads. So in that case, you know, structuring those LDFAs to ensure that businesses within that, and that's much like better tax incremental financing authority set up to sequester tax dollars that then are used to support that, you know, the real estate, so the roads and water sewer expansion, broadband, and things like that.
Thank you.
Other questions, council? Mr. Shields.
Yes, thank you for your presentation and your comment about working with communities who don't have the capacity to employ an economic development professional. I see the value in that in a partnership. One thing you mentioned is being an LEA, being a community entity and functioning like a cooperative. Can you expound on that a little bit? Not to put you on a spot or anything, but you know, cooperative members have votes, and you know, there's a sense of empowerment of the community to have a say. Are you saying that? How do you interact with the community's needs, desires, wants, and interests?
That's a great question. Yeah. So our board, our bylaws mandate that our structure is a real, true public-private partnership, has the voice of elected individuals. One member of each of the county's 5 appointments must be a county commissioner. So there's always a public representative, voice of the public in our board process. We also do that through, and we were just actually talking about this today, as we kind of change and shift maybe more away from traditional strategic planning to more strategic conversations and strategic visioning in our organization. That there is an element, engaging in an element of community development, community input from local stakeholders, whether that's at county, township, city, village level, and how we take that information. We oftentimes do that through the master planning process. And so we're highly dependent upon the master plans and land use plans that communities develop to guide our activities, to direct us in terms of the desires and longer term desires of communities. And then as we interpret that, we use that information and then match that up with the desires of and goals of private sector businesses to grow or to cite particular companies and communities based upon that fit and how we kind of sift through that information. So it's really kind of community as bottom up and enterprise almost as top down. I wouldn't say it's directly a bottom to top, it's more kind of lateral, coming from both perspectives. perspective. So it's really trying to create that connection. We know that every one of our communities has a little bit different vision for itself. And so we have to respect that, but we first and foremost have to understand that. We start with at a community planning and community development, but a master planning level to really take that information and sift through that and understand how the community wants to grow and evolve. And the reality is, we have communities that I would say where economic development is a really significant strategic priority, but other communities where economic resilience is maybe a bigger priority than economic development. So understanding that nuance and how we structure and how we deploy our resources to that is what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, David, for your presentation. I look forward to Thursday's entrepreneurial ecosystem talk and discussion. You mentioned a couple of things, redevelopment of existing structures for mixed use, and also working with municipalities and communities where maybe certain ordinances or policies are obstacles to economic development, be that housing. Very specifically, have you encountered or would you consider perhaps thinking about obstacles or policies that exist in the city of Petoskey that could be obstacles to some development, especially around the redevelopment of existing structures for mixed use? You mentioned Michigan Maple Block property, and I'm sure there's certain ordinances or policies that are in place now as a previous industrial site for decades that would maybe prevent it from being a mixed use development. And if you could maybe touch on some of those, or at a later date in 2023, if you could outline some of those things so we could check those boxes off. Thanks.
Thoughts on
So.
Come on down. Name.
Working with
name,
Emmett County. Oh,
name.
sorry, Jessica Lovick, Northern Lakes Economic Alliance. So we're currently working with the Emmett County Brownfield Authority on that particular site. So where some of our skill sets comes, helping work through the EGLE process, whether it's site cleanup, things like that, help with grant writing, grant administration. So we'll help work with some of that environmental stuff, as well as work with the developer, work with their consultant, Matt McClellan, and help with those obstacles to be that bridge, that conversation, or that friendly face that can say, hey, company here, X, Y, and Z, this is what they're facing, what can we do, how can we help? So we're gonna help you there.
Thank you. Any other questions, council? Mayor, really a comment and a compliment. I'm real big on collaboration. I think we all are, right? It's a whole lot easier to get things done together than it is with one entity, but it's not easy. And I was in some of the early discussions on the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and it was Dave from NLEA. It was two individuals from North Central Michigan College, president, and another individual there, a consultant, myself. And it's really bringing together two nonprofits, so to speak, and mapping out what they believe is the ecosystem. And then these 2 days that are coming up of exercises are bringing the rest of the community and the private sector and others. And I just look at that, it's like easier said than done. And it's been a very small investment, in my opinion, shared by NLEA and the college for the greater good. So anything else, council? Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. One more item. I know that Shane had confirmed that we do have allocated money in the 2023 budget to be for our membership dues to the NLEA. Can you tell me, has Emmett County confirmed 2023 allotments for your organization?
yes, they are a 3-year service agreement that began in 2022, so 2022, 23, fiscal year 24 are within that service agreement.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Shields.
If someone from the private sector calls the city and asks, who can I speak with about economic development regarding the city, can they direct that person to you guys?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I will just say, council that Zach and I had a sit down with Dave, Jessica, Chris and Sam about a month ago or so at their offices, and it was a very good discussion. I feel like I've gotten up to speed on their capabilities, and certainly they've performed well in this county and beyond. So I'm grateful for your consideration for this partnership.
Looking forward to hearing from you a year from now. Looking forward to working with you for this. I know speaking for the city council and staff, we're looking forward to great things with you. Thank you very much, David and staff, for driving out on this. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to make sure we had a motion to move. I don't believe we had a motion, did we? To move.
Mayor, I'll be happy to make a motion
Okay,
to move new business, section A, appointment of Berg Assessing and Consulting for City Assessor Contractual Services up to point number 5B.
thank you.
I support the motion.
Motion from Ms. Walker and a second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion, council? I go to city clerk. Back the roll.
Walker.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Wagner.
Yeah.
Murphy.
Yes. Thank you. Next is consent agenda. That's the adoption of a proposed resolution that would confirm
No,
what?
you
wanna
move
do
this.
that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we are moving that. Duh. I had it, yeah. Anyway, next is the appointment of Berg Assessing and Consulting for the city assessor contractual services. As you know, council, there's only 3 people that we basically have responsibility for: city attorney, city manager, and city assessor, and they are our employees, so to speak. So I turn it over to City Manager Horn for introductions.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council, for considering and moving this up on your agenda. As you know, Bob Engelbrecht retired or stepped down after 12 years as our contractual assessor. Tim Grimm has filled in that role since August in a temporary arrangement. He made it very clear when he stepped in that he wanted to be done by November 1st. He's got other things that he wants to enjoy, and I'm assuming a lot of folks in this region will be enjoying that in mid-November as well. So Tim made it very clear to me that he November 1st was his time. So I have sought to fill this position. Bob's feedback to me when he stepped away was he thought that we were reaching a point where we could utilize the services of a full-time assessor again in Petoskey, just the demands of the position. So I had sent out a advertisement for the position. We had received 2 applicants. We have interviewed them as a committee. I think both were very well qualified and would do a fine job. The challenge that we have in front of us is we're approaching the end of the year, and some requirements that are needed to be in place. With both of these applicants are from downstate, and so it would be a relocation scenario with the current housing situation and the notices that they would have to give to their current employer and getting up here in time. It was a pretty condensed schedule. So Alan Berg actually reached out to me and saw the posting and asked if there was any opportunities for their organization to help us fill that need. So we interviewed or talked with Alan and Tim and I and Audrey. Had a good conversation with Alan and found out that his organization takes care of a number of municipalities in the area, addressing and providing some contractual assessing services in our region. They have the staffing, they have the bandwidth, the capacity to complete our requirements and continuing to provide assessing services for our residents as we move forward. And Alan is here. He's available for any sort of Q&A that you would like to have with him. He has submitted a contractual agreement for your consideration as well. Again, he and his staff have the capability of taking us on and continuing to provide assessing services for our community. It's possible that, and who knows how this relationship could blossom. We could have a great, which I'm anticipating, a great relationship and move forward, or we could decide, after board of review and we have a little bit of time to reassess, maybe we try to seek a full-time employee at that point. But I think for now, I think this is the best opportunity for us to move forward and really try to get our requirements complete. And I think they have the capacity and the ability to do this. And so again, I'll turn it over to you for any Q&A with Alan that you deem appropriate.
Council, do you want to step up to the mic and introduce yourself? That's okay.
Again, my name is Alan Berg, from the main company headquarters out of Roger City, and we have 27 clients, townships and cities from really small to large municipalities. 22 years experience, level 4, the highest license level that the state has certified. And we're a little different. So as city manager, one suggested, you have a full-time employee doing this on a daily basis. There's a few that contract with a couple of municipalities. And we're a little bit different where we have 11 staff. Do this every day, Monday to Friday, and we have various subject matter experts to handle the questions that come up on a daily basis with your taxpayers. So we're a little bit different in that respect. We're kind of a hybrid.
Okay. Two things. Could you name some cities or municipalities that you're involved with?
We are like the city of Roger City, the city of Pressfield, a lot of times in Preston County, Pima County. We actually work all the way down to Livingston County, the whole area, King County, Bay County, West Branch, Gladwin area.
Okay.
That's kind of our territory.
Okay. And is it correct that every, 3, 4, 5 years you will audit 20% of the houses would be audited or would be reviewed? Is that correct?
There is a state tax commission, so from the Department of Treasury, the state tax commission does recommend a 20% random inspection vote.
Will you be doing that?
That was not part of our proposal.
I see.
Not in this first year. We were kind of under the gun, obviously, if we continue that relationship, then we would address that.
Okay.
Going forward.
Okay. Ms. Demore.
I have a question for Shane and then for you. Is this an annualized contract or a month to month?
It's an annual contract, but the pay is month to month. So the contract actually goes from November 1st to October 31st. And there is an opt-out with, and I don't really have it in front of me, the 60 days. I don't recall. Yeah, so there's a opt-out that either party can
Exercise.
get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, Mr. Berg, just as far as process in-house, do you have then a dedicated individual that would be doing Petoskey's work, or how would that work? Thank you.
That is a great question. So that kind of goes to my introduction a little bit, that we're a hybrid. That is one method that in the southern part of the state seems to be predominant. We've not found that to be the most efficient. Property tax assessment administration is highly complex. There are many facets to it, whether you're talking about a TIFA district or just where to mail a form. So I've developed and trained my staff on a subject matter expert area. So all particular areas that get about this, it goes to this employee. And that allows me to make sure that they're giving 110% accurate information every time on a consistent basis, following policies and protocols. If there was one person assigned, now the question goes from, very simple, to very complicated. And we found more success in that type of a departmentalized answering.
It does. Thank you.
The questions, council. Miss Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have a question. It's actually for Shane first. Shane, can you tell me what we had budgeted for 2022? And was Mr. Engelbrecht a full-time or part-time contracted employee through the city of Petoskey?
Yeah, Bob was contractual, so he was 40 hours a week, but he was only in the office. I believe it was Wednesdays and Fridays from 8 to noon. But he also answered calls or emails in his off or in the other times that he wasn't in the office. But so yes, he was contractual for that period of time. I will say that, and I don't have it in
I think
front
it
of
was
me.
somewhere with around $96,000.
He was around 90, his was around 90,000 contractual. When you look at, and we had proposed in FY 23 to add the full-time, thank you, add the full-time position. When you add the salary with a family benefit package, it was approaching about 140,000. So in this contractual relationship, we would actually be saving a little bit in this going this route.
Thank you.
He did also do the auditing. That was suggested by the state.
To the best, yeah, I don't know if he reached the 20%, but that's
Okay. The goal.
the goal, yeah.
Okay.
Whereas I think maybe if we had someone in-house, that could probably be a little easier to attain, but
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Walker? Mr. Wagner?
I think a simple question. So I heard Tina's question about multiple people, and I actually like the sound of the process, but is there a primary contact? So if the mayor needed to reach you, are you that person? Or somebody?
Yes, everything filters through our office in a very specified process. So you basically just call our email and it gets filtered through shared inboxes and it gets assigned to me. So all my staff and receptionists know exactly the type of question you might have. Traditionally, any council or mayor, council members or the mayor or county officials or city staff generally come right to me. Basically, I have two emails. So my email's this, and for any admin things for that nature.
Okay, thanks.
Or if it wasn't, it would go to the general staff, and they would instantly find anything out of their wheelhouse. It all flows down at the end of the day. You can imagine.
So we'll end up getting your contacts and stuff just in case just for the future if needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would roll if this works for the city and we already have an onboarding process. So here's the sheets for the public, here's the sheets for the city staff. If anybody needs to contact me directly.
Okay.
at Work, so all of that, kind of already have that in a package box to deploy to basically, the way I describe it is flipping a switch.
Okay.
Switch and say it all goes here, anything that smells or looks or might need to be assessing related, we want to handle it due to the complex nature and making sure it gets done.
Right.
Consistent.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion.
I'll give the motion a second, just to follow up on that question. So I assume that in the board review process, when, any public has a opportunity to challenge or raise a question, that there'd be the appropriate people there to answer those questions, or it'd be funneled correctly.
So, another great question, we did talk about that last week. We definitely work with, and I did have time to look at your chart, you have a separately appointed 3-person board review. So we would work with them in advance to ensure that they have all the tools and resources and what they need and how does it work and what protocols and what we're looking for, the steps and stages, working with staff here. And how that actual one-on-one process works, I don't know, kind of have to feel that out, and then we would make sure to wrap everything up, that all the rules and laws are followed, and that there weren't any accidental decision that shouldn't have went that way and make sure that all the laws of the state are continued. to follow.
You'll be attending, somebody will be attending the two meetings where the board of review or individuals can come and plead their cases though, right?
That would be more than not really, maybe, we're not sure. I don't- I'm not sure, that was the last week, well.
Yeah. Do you at the other cities that you have? Alpena, do you go to theirs?
We do with that. We do not, every city, township or client is different. That's the problem with, we don't. really
I understand.
know What,
Yeah.
what they want, some units
Right.
do not want that. Some units do,
Uh-huh.
some units don't need it, some units do,
Uh-huh.
some of it's a hybrid.
Of the cities that you work with? Forget about counties and townships, of the cities you work with, do you attend those meetings?
Hybrid. Yes.
Okay. Shane, question for you. Are you comfortable running those meetings yourself? Or who would be running those meetings?
I would need to get to know, obviously, our board of review. That's not my area. That's not something that I would be comfortable doing. So,
I've attended a couple of them and the city assessor was always there.
yeah, and we
Because he kind of helped to organize and run the meeting, basically.
Mhm.
The board people are three people out of the community that are on a volunteer board.
Yeah.
We actually have one position open right now for somebody that I wish I could find somebody to serve on the board of review right now. If you can come up with somebody, council, I'd love to hear it. And I'd love to have somebody in there sooner than later.
Mhm.
Yes, Ms. Walker?
Mayor, I really appreciate you answering that question, because I don't know if I would feel comfortable approving a contract if somebody wasn't gonna be attending the Board of Review meetings like that. I know in my experience in Ward 4, there was a resident business owner that had lots of questions about, you know, what he was being assigned for taxes in fiscal year 2021, and there was a process for it, and it was resolved eventually. So I would just be very concerned, like, who's gonna staff that? And if these contractual obligations, if like staffing a board of review is not part of the contract, I would hope that we would give that serious consideration, because I can't imagine just like throwing them to the wolves.
Could that be written into your contract that you would attend at least the fall meeting? Is there a fall meeting or is that past?
Spring.
Spring of March,
March.
15th or, huh?
There is one in December,
Yeah,
December, March, July.
Yeah, but normally doesn't the people show up on which one? Do they also attend the July one?
I mean, they're all public meetings, but
Right.
March is the one.
March is the
Right.
one that people come to.
Mhm.
Can we put in the contract that you will have somebody on staff at the March meeting for the day?
As the city manager said, we're precariously short on time.
March, we're talking of March.
Right.
This
But
is,
the
this is,
November 1st time frame is very, very difficult, to pull that off, if it were April or May. I probably would be able to give you a better answer. Unfortunately, I'm not sure. I don't want to say yes and not be able to do that. I believe in a review of your bylaws that your, bylaws charter, that it is the second week, as opposed to different flexibility within any city charters. So most of the cities that we work with, we are more flexibility in March, and it looks like the city of Petoskey, you're locked into the same general law rule as townships.
right.
So I guess, a little blindsided me on the schedule of how we would pull that off right now.
We're in new areas with ourselves as well, with council, you understand? Nine.
I just don't want to, I don't want to agree to something and have a moment's notice and put something in a contract that I can't considerably provide.
Sure.
I don't want to say no, but I want to say yes. Well, I guess I have to say no to our contractual provision at a moment's notice. And
How much time would you need to be able to say yes, potentially?
That's where my precarious timing comes up. We're kind of, if we don't know what to do on November first, we probably wouldn't be able to help you at the moment. So we're out of time. I don't know how to describe that, might not make a lot of sense, but our workload comes up significantly starting November first. In fact, there's a deadline on November first that I think we're going to be tight to even accomplish for you, that we would actually start a new meeting tomorrow morning. Literally that time. April first, not a problem. April, May, June, July, that's not a problem. November first, it's essentially we don't usually onboard cities or townships past November first. Otherwise, charges, you know, it's almost like an express processing thing. So that's, I want to give you an answer you're not looking for, but I also can't stand here and honestly say that that's plausible. And I can just assure you that we work very diligently with the staff that we have in the building to ensure to be a seamless transition. Yes, if I may, might offer that board of review is typically looked at as an opportunity for everyone to talk about what's going on, and we offer that service 52 weeks a year, Monday through Friday. Anyone can do it at any time. The board of review in March, and to clarify, we will be here in July and December, but you're speaking to March. That's their opportunity to present information with an independent panel of 3 people appointed by yourself. The duty in that 12 hours is to sit and listen and absorb that information. We will then work with that panel, have they any questions for us, technical in nature, but they're really supposed to just weigh out the evidence. You know, if we do this, we train the board of review that this is what we do, this is what the taxpayer is going to bring to you, and you're going to make that independent judicial decision about what's the fair thing for the taxpayer. Technically, it doesn't involve the assessor, but there are technical issues that we can always make sure that we have completely filled so we don't let them go astray. But that's, I mean, it does work well. And I know we spoke briefly about this, but I know I'm sure you have the staff here that can be worked with this to make sure guide through the process. And make sure all the forms and everything is how it needs to go, so that the taxpayer can be guided through the process professionally and purposely.
Can I ask Shane, are you comfortable with this?
It's really your comfortability. It's your,
Okay, so I'm asking for, all right, we'll make the decision, but I guess we want to get your input on it.
yeah, I mean, that's, I would not present something to you that I was not comfortable with myself. So it's a little different situation in that we will not have somebody in the office. However, I think potentially customer service could be improved because our website will be updated with a link to Berg Assessing and Consulting with their contact information. So, and Alan shared with us his percent of calls that they get answered are, what did you say, 75%, and some of the 75% are answered on the first call versus, you know, if we don't have somebody in the office, that calls go into voicemail and eventually will get returned. I think potentially from a customer service standpoint, that could be enhanced with this partnership because he has the staff to be able to do it.
Okay,
I think we can work through board of review and figure out a scenario. I'm certainly comfortable working with him to find that solution.
all right. That's all I needed to know was, you know, you're comfortable with it, because I don't want to put you in an awkward situation.
We do have a staff member that's desires to get some training in this area and has started down that path and we'll certainly support her to continue in that effort and be that point of contact here in the building. So and obviously I'm here and if that's something that I need to step in and provide, then you know, I can certainly do that as well.
Council, any other questions, or you want a motion or other questions? Mr. Moore.
I was just going to make a statement that given the urgency of the November 1 deadline approaching And given the provision that either party, we hope this doesn't happen, can exit. It seems to me that it's wise to move forward on this, so I'm happy to
Okay.
make the motion if you'd like me to.
Yes, please.
So move that we approve the assessing services contract with Berg Assessing and Consulting of Rogers City, Michigan.
I have a motion from Ms. Demore and a second from Mr. Wagner. Any other discussion, council? Public, do you wish to weigh in? There being none, I go to city clerk Beck for roll.
Demore,
Aye.
Wagner.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Thank you for working with us. We look forward to having a good year together.
Thank you very much.
Next, now we're to the consent agenda, and it's the adoption of a proposed resolution that will approve the following. The October 3rd, 2022 regular session city council meeting minutes, as well as acknowledge the receipt of certain transactions that have been reported. The administrative transactions since October 3rd, 2022, and I take it's council for possible motion or changes. Mr. Shields,
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
I have a motion from Mr. Shields, a second from Ms. Demore. Any other council comments, discussion? There being none, I go to city clerk Beck for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Wagner.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. The consent agenda passes 4-5-0. Now, this is your opportunity as the public to speak to council about anything you wish to speak about. If it is on the agenda and you can still wait, I appreciate, and we appreciate that if you'll hold it off, because you will have opportunity to speak at the agenda item that you may be here for. Is there anybody that wishes to speak to council about any matters at this point? If you do, I'd like your full name, full address, step up to the mic first, and here we go. Yes, Ms. Buckmaster. You want to move that down? Bend it, just bend it down, pull it. There you go. That's good.
Carla Buckmaster, Bear Creek Township,
Address,
Bear Creek Township,
address.
actual. 3860 Sheldon Drive,
Okay,
Pittsburgh. You probably know some of this, maybe not. Emmett County is paying $84,000 a year to NLEA. That comes out to about $1,500 or $1,600 a week that the taxpayers are paying them per year. And some of you, most, they know I attend just about every county meeting or I read the minutes. And we've been asking NLEA since the beginning of the year. The contract was made again after getting rid of them for a couple of years. That to get a report of what they have actually accomplished for Emmett County. And there's been no report. I see that on the agenda that finally November 7th for the next Emmett County board meeting. Or it won't be the next one, the following one, that there is to be a report from NLEA. But I guess I have a real hard time understanding why the county is having to pay them. I don't know what Emmett County is doing. I don't understand why, since Emmett County is paying for a year of NLEA, why that doesn't cover the city. I'd be real curious as to how much money the city is going to have to be putting in on top of what the county is going to put in. And as far as I see, so far, received nothing that they've been willing to report. Nothing I've heard. So, if any of you get anything upset, if you're like the county commissioners, they don't speak back from the public comment. I don't know if that's what you're practices here, but, I would certainly like to know how much the cost of everything and what you're going to get. I mean, he was talking about, Acton Road project. I'm part of Bear Creek Township and that's in Bear Creek Township. And not seeing anybody from the LEA in those meetings, and that project is kind of come to a standstill at this point. That's my comment. Do you speak that, you know?
I will, yeah.
Okay, you want me to go sit down?
Sure.
Thank you.
The city of Petoskey, in the budget for this coming year, it's $10,000. $1.50 per residence in Petoskey out of 6,000. If you want to figure out the number amount, $1.50 per person. As you recall, Ms. Buckmaster, I stated he would come back within 1 year to give us a report on what he has accomplished in 1 year. And I can assure you that the council finds that he did not produce something for the city of Petoskey. There'll be a real question about whether we will continue to fund that. But I feel that they've established themselves over 40 years with a lot that has been involved in the city and the counties as well. And I'm in favor of continuing that. I don't know, council, if you want to make a comment, fine, otherwise we move on. There you go. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to address the city council? Evening, Justin.
Good evening, thank you, Chairman. Justin Rashid, 115 East Mitchell Street, Petoskey, and also founder of American Spoon. I don't come to many meetings for good reason, but I try to be vigilant about things that I perceive to be threats to the wonderful, unique sense of place that we have here in our downtown. So with that in mind, over 40 plus years here, I've learned by the wisdom, sitting on the benches, that our visitors don't spend time here because our shops remind them of the urban and suburban malls, where they come from. Where, doesn't matter if that halo lit signs, illuminated signs, are everywhere. Come.
Is this in regards to Halo signs?
Yeah.
Can you wait until that comes up?
Is why it's been important.
It seems like if you want the benefit of discussion. If you want this to be your discussion time for it, that's fine, but I thought you would want to know what city council has not even discussed any motions on this or movements.
Sure. You know.
I'll ask council. I think that's normally how we've been doing it, council.
If you can stay, Justin, it could be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Next. Anybody else with a comment, miscellaneous public comment to the city? Is there anybody online that wishes to speak? There being none. Now we're going to go to the city manager's updates, and I turn that over to city manager Shane Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things to highlight. Couple meetings, being the third week of the month. This is a heavier evening meeting week. So tonight, obviously, we have our regular council meeting. Tomorrow night, DMB meets at their regular time. They have a few things on their agenda. They have a biannual informational meeting that'll happen tomorrow during their regular meeting. They have a facade grant extension where I didn't put the street 316 Lake Street, right? Is that Lake Street, right? Yeah. And then the formal acceptance of the Walker parking study that you have seen. And then a formal recommendation that'll be passed on to city staff to put together an ordinance for dining decks as we move ahead. So that's their agenda. Planning Commission on Thursday, just a fairly light agenda for them. Is 923 Baxter Street. This is a site plan review for the Elder Piper Tap Room that Dave talked about a little bit. So I just wanted to update you on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Kendall and the Parks Commission has been working diligently to update our master plan as it pertains to our parks. So we've had a number of opportunities for the public to engage in this process, both in person and through a survey opportunity, both online and hard copies that have been placed around the city. So we've had good responses to this. We had a total of 230 surveys completed and sent back. This is more than double from our 2018 engagement or master plan that was at that time. So we're thrilled with that response. Kendall will be having a special meeting with his commission next Monday to talk about the draft master plan, get updates from them. And then he'll be presenting the findings of the survey to and the master plan to Planning Commission. And then I've asked him to present the findings to council as well. So you all know kind of what the responses were and what the master plan outline looks like going forward. So a few things to highlight coming up. Wednesday, the Petoskey Chamber will be hosting their business expo. This is at Nub's Knob from 5 to 8. So we encourage folks to get out there. They're expecting over 50 vendors. It obviously is open to the public. So we encourage people to get out and support our local and area businesses and vendors. Few other things downtown Petoskey. It's becoming that time of year as we can see outside. Downtown is sponsoring their annual trick or treat. That's October 29. And I'm having a hard time reading that, but the parade starts from Central Elementary from what time is that? 9:45. So and then from 10 to 12, I'm looking at Becky. There'll be trick or treating downtown. And that's followed by later in the evening at dusk, a jack-o'-lantern walk that'll be downtown as well. So overall, the city of Petoskey trick-or-treating will be obviously on Halloween, Monday, October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. Just want to highlight, I was able to join, and I think Commissioner Walker was there as well. Our Fall Fest, unfortunately, as much planning and effort that city staff put into this, the chamber put into this, Rotary put into this. We tried to plan for everything, but what we can't control obviously is the weather. And unfortunately, Saturday was not a great weather day here in the city. But a lot of effort went into this. I think kids that came out still had a nice time painting up their pumpkins and watching the pumpkins roll down the hill. So the show went on, even though it was a very challenging weather day. So I was really impressed. We had a juggler. I think that's a routine. He's been coming for the last few years. A very impressive gentleman, and he was a showman for sure. And the kids really loved him. It got to a point where it was just pouring down rain, and he was trying to juggle and doing a great job. I have to admit, even in wet conditions. Very entertaining. That was worth coming out just to watch him. He was very engaging, so that was fun. And then obviously our dump truck full of pumpkins that people bought, and we put a number on them and drove them up onto the hill and emptied the dump truck. And the furthest one obviously was the winner. And so it was a fun time. We were concerned that the truck was going to make it up the hill on a slippery hill and potentially what that would look like. But we made it, and it was still a fun event. Wanted to update you a little bit again on pictures for Solanas beach improvements. So this is further improvements along the walkway, accessibility to the shoreline. Well, again, there'll be a mobility mat that'll go out to the shoreline that folks will be able to get right up and put their toes in the water if they so choose to do that using the mobility mat, and just provide them, direct access to the beautiful surroundings that we enjoy. So I did have a question that came up on any type of ice shear concerns with ice that forms and the wind conditions that may blow ice up and impact this deck. This is the 4x4s that you see that are supporting the joist are on a floating pier, if you will. So it's intended to flex. We did a feasibility study where this should go. We've done a lot of due diligence to look at locations, and I think we've placed this in a spot where, knock on wood, we've really never had ice to that point, and we hope we don't have ice to this point. But I think the way this was designed and engineered, it is designed to move a little bit if needed. Obviously, if we get some horrendous conditions, all bets are off at that point. But it is designed to flex. One of the things I wanted to share with you, I shared this slide when I presented to Rotary last month. I've really been in the mode of getting out in the community to introduce myself, create connections and contacts. I'm not native to this to Petoskey, so no one knows me. I don't know them. So I've really tried to be intentional about extending opportunities to sit down and have a coffee or a tea or a lunch, and just open my schedule for anyone that I can get in front of, and just try to learn all things Petoskey, and just learn from people that have been here, that grew up here, that are natives of this area, and then business partners as well, trying to, again, cement those relationships, exchange contact information. And so it's been a very valuable first 120 days or so for me, just, again, building those relationships, because I don't have those built-in connections. So I'm really happy and really pleased. And the recurring theme that I hear when I sit down with people is I can hear it. Their eyes light up when they talk about Petoskey, just all the beauty that's around us. And then just all the work that's gone into making Petoskey what it is today. And certainly I want to be able to support that and cultivate that as we move forward and create those opportunities to see Petoskey thrive and protect the Petoskey way of life, if you will. So I've really enjoyed my opportunity to build those relationships, and now it's continuing on. This doesn't end after the first 120 days. Obviously, this is an ongoing thing that day in, day out, it's about relationships and about connections and establishing those. And so when something comes up, I know who to call from these folks, and they know me, I know them, and we can collaborate, because that's what it's about. It's not about the city trying to solve all the issues in the area, but it's our partners coming together and collaborating as we talk about the wheelway and what that looks like to reestablish itself. That's a bigger issue than just the city of Petoskey. That's a lot of folks coming to the table and finding some resources and some ways to how we're going to address this thing. So I feel confident that we have the knowledge, the skills, and the wherewithal to really make this happen. So I'm very happy about that. Any questions for me?
Council, do you have any questions for the city manager? Mr. Shields.
Did you be able to meet the new superintendent for Petoskey Schools?
Did today, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Excellent.
Dr. Leslie, yep.
Leslie.
Great discussion.
Great. I have had some Ward 2 residents having issues with the sound of the stadium. So at some point I'll relay those to you if that is new information or not.
Yeah. I've heard the marching band very early practicing.
That's not the issue.
Oh, it's not the issue? Okay.
No, it's the
The football games?
The football games,
It's the football games that are not, I mean, they understand the Friday night football games. It's the football games on Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday morning, using the same speaker system.
youth.
Youth.
And I have heard that from my backyard and I thought, what's going on? It's not a Petoskey High School varsity game with 1,000 people there, but I drove by and it was nothing more than a small group of kids playing soccer with.
As I understand, there's two different audio systems, one for the varsity and junior varsity games. The youth one, the other speaker system would be in place for that system. So it doesn't disturb the residents on a Saturday morning.
I did get a call. And I was actually gonna bring that up, but I guess you did, so thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, council? Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mayor. Shay, you had mentioned an extension for the downtown management board that they're going to review an extension of the 316 facade grant. That's the same property that has the Oprah Obsolete Properties Rehabilitation Act, and there's a sunset clause on that as well. Are these projects affiliated or?
It's the same project, yeah.
Okay, and is, so there's a variety of other businesses downtown that received that facade grant. From the city of Petoskey, from the downtown management board, they have since completed their projects, or what's the status with that? And is this like an annual review process?
How about if I ask Becky Goodman, who is the downtown management director? I know that it comes up every year. I know that they're different locations receive the grants according to what they're going to do. Becky, could you step in?
So
Thank you.
we do have a grant program every year. It's been $20,000 per year. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had trouble. Some of the people have had trouble completing their grants, regardless if they were over or not. And we've asked them, I've asked them, do you want to reapply? Do you want to have it extended? A couple of them have, one of them had an extension granted and still couldn't get the project done. So others have. Am I missing?
No, I just,
Contractor issue is the problem.
as I was wondering if it was a supply chain issue or contractors getting a general contractor to do that. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rick.
I don't think it's a lack of effort by the businesses as I saw. Is that correct?
It's definitely not a lack of effort. They want to get it done.
Yeah.
But they'll say, I can't find a painter.
Right.
I can't find a roofer. I can't find the one to do it.
Correct, a window, yeah.
The money in some cases has gone. On that.
I sit on the downtown management board and I have witnessed good things that have happened out of that. If you drive around, you may not notice it, but you'll see an upgrade of a building front here or there. And I think that all accumulated, it makes a big difference. Okay, Mr. Wagner.
Just a comment again, to compliment Shane and say thank you for all that outreach, because back in the interview process many months ago, there was a question about how are you going to get out and meet the leaders in the town, and you've done exactly what you said, and I've had a lot of compliments back, and I know there were a couple of introductions I made and said, well, maybe you can meet Shane at City Hall, and Shane's immediate answer was, no, I'm going to them. I'm going to them where they are. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Anything else from the public wish to weigh in on this? Ms. Buckmaster, you need to come up to the mic if you want to speak. Reason being is it's recorded.
Just a matter of information, Emmett County does have a new logo compared to the one that is posted.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. No further other comments. Let's move on to old business and the adoption of a proposed resolution that would approve. This is for the downtown management board. I want to inject. Program services, establish an assessment district and direct that an assessment role be prepared for subsequent review by city council. City manager, do you want to speak or?
Yeah, this is just a kind of step two of a three-step process. It's kind of a long process, but as the resolution or as the agenda title specifies, this would direct us as staff to prepare the special assessment role in accordance with the city council's passage.
Make a motion to approve the request to move forward with special assessment and public hearing resolution.
Support.
I have a motion from Mr. Shields, a second from Mr. Moore. Any other discussion, council? We had reviewed this already before, plus we had a public hearing on this. Does the public wish to weigh in on this? There being no public comment, I turn it over to City Clerk Beck for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Demore. Wagner.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Passes 5-0. Now we're coming to Justin, your area. This is second discussion and possible adoption of a proposed ordinance that would amend the sign ordinance to allow for halo lit signs. I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Horn for information.
Yeah, we're between Zach and I, we're available for comments, council comments. This has been discussed on many different angles and levels. So we're just prepared to further discuss based on your input and public's input as directed.
Okay. Council, you have any questions or comments regarding this? Ms. Demore.
Yeah, I would like to encourage my colleagues not to move forward with this. I received comments from numerous stakeholders with concerns that this was not put before the Downtown Design Committee. And I also noted in the downtown minutes that there were concerns for the same reason, that their input had not been engaged. And I think it was my understanding that someone was going to also contact you, Zach, and I don't know if that happened or not.
Zach, have you been contacted?
I think I might have received an email.
Okay,
I was out of the office.
Yeah.
Might have been.
okay. I think part of the concern is that while Zach and the planning commission move forward on this because this is a citywide halo sign abilities to do it. It's citywide. It is not just the downtown management board. I do think it would behoove us to send it back to there so that they can weigh in on this and give us recommendations through their downtown management board, which they would then report to and could give us feedback through Becky on that.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Those were the concerns I heard expressed were relative to the use of these in downtown, the historic district, as versus other areas of the city where there were not concerns expressed. Thank you.
Personally, I think it's. I don't have concerns about it, but I want to stay with that. You know, I'm a process person. Do the process of it. And if you feel that you want to send it back to the Downtown Management Board's Design Committee, I'm fine with that. I'm asking you for which direction you want to go. Mr. Shields.
Is there any impact for delaying this decision? Is there any reason to expedite it? Just can we wait?
Zach.
At this point, no. Initially, there was some concern about one applicant getting their halo sign in downtown. I haven't been downtown at night to see what it looks like.
Ms. Walker.
Thanks, Mayor. So can you confirm that, so the one example we were given of a halo lit sign was the Quiet Moose building? Does that mean that they're operating with a sign that's like in violation of the ordinance? Is that what's happening right now? Or is there a proposal?
The original Quiet Moose, the largest building that's on the south side of the road.
I believe, from my understanding, the way that one was designed, it was approved because it did not meet, it was a different criteria than what was presented. So arguably. I don't have that application in front of me to be able to tell you what exactly it should look like.
And so there's a secondary, I'm just trying to follow along the kind of timeline here. So there's a secondary application for a halo lit sign from the new Quiet Mills location across the street.
Correct.
There's been they applied with a different sign that was not halo lit. That was approved.
Thank you.
Council, are you okay with sending this?
Yes, I'm okay with that. If that's a motion.
Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, it's okay with me.
Mayor, can I, if I may?
Please.
This went through the sign committee as well as the planning commission. I think I made my point clear. I'm kind of neutral on this, but process wise, I think there is a bit of an issue that there is no exact process and at what point the design committee is involved in any sort of element of the downtown. So I think that is something that should be hashed out and this could have been avoided when we get to that. That being said, modern best practice is to help streamline processes. An amendment like this going through 3 committees before it gets to you guys for 2 readings, I would argue is not streamlining. That being said, I'm happy to move forward and do this. I think it's important. But my hope is that we find a more streamlined approach than having to go through 3 committees for.
What are your recommendations?
I don't have them yet,
Okay.
but I think there's room for improvement there because my concern is a text amendment, like I said, if it goes to the design committee, a sign committee, planning commission, then comes to you guys for 2 readings. Practically, that could be many months.
You understand?
And I don't mean to sway your decision. I'm just saying that my hope is with this is that I'm going to look at this and I'd like to find a better way to approach it.
You know, some of these things that overlap, such as signs and lit signs, really overlap a lot of different areas from the downtown to the planning commission to, the sign committee. And I think sometimes we're going to have things that are going to have to go through a process so that people that are involved with those boards feel that they have been given the opportunity to participate, not just sit in the audience, but are on the board for a reason. So in this case, I'm fine with sending it back.
I'm definitely in favor of streamlining. But I asked that question about timing. It sounds like there's not a need for haste here, so I support moving it back. It's a downtown management board or they have a committee?
Downtown Management Board Design Committee. When do they meet?
That would be just one more.
You don't need to go to the board for this then, is that what you're saying? You would not see that. When is their next meeting?
I think they scheduled one for the 7th. I have to look.
Would this be included in that? So we could have back from you on our next city council meeting, which would be November 7th. We'll await your information to come back on November 7th, okay?
Okay.
But I will take some ownership of this from a process standpoint. I'm still learning who gets what and who needs to see what. So I'm certainly not a fan of a 6-month process to get a sign. I think that when you sit down with a business owner and a sign company and you talk about that, I think that is concerning. But
Yes.
I think we could have, and I'll take again ownership. We could have. If I'd have known what the process was, maybe a little bit better, get it in front of follow the proper process. And so this doesn't get repeated. And I certainly will learn from this.
It's understandable, you're new here. And Zach's new. I'm fine with, let's send it back and let's look at streamlining. But at this point, so that these people that feel that they're on board and for a purpose have the opportunity to participate in decision making. And again, it comes back to us for the decision making. Hopefully it'll be back on November 7th. if you can put it on the agenda and we'll address it. Is there anybody in public wishes to speak to council at this point regarding this matter? Justin?
I think. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
Council has addressed my primary concern, which is the concern process. And we try to, there have been no design review. This came as a surprise to the design. And I think that's because I think it's fundamentally dysfunctional when you have a sign ordinance that is the result of a very involved process over a long period of time. And it's a very clear provision about prohibiting illuminated signs. And then a applicant, a single applicant, makes an application which includes an illuminated sign. These aren't new. They've been around for a long time. They're everywhere. You'll see them in every urban and suburban mall you go to. It's a look that my personal taste, it's my personal expression, and that may be decided upon, but as a long-term city resident and business owner, the look we have now is a result of a lot of sweat, a lot of consideration, and a lot of deliberation, a lot of debate. And one applicant comes in and as a response to that applicant, the planning commission writes a new ordinance. And the design review committee that has seen every sign ordinance prior to this time doesn't get involved. And I think this may be fine citywide. And I think it was very special consideration when we're talking about unique downtown, small town downtown environment that has been created in our town. So I'm grateful to the council. Let us look at the long-term and greater implications of changing the provision against illuminated signs.
Thank you. Anyone else will speak to council at this point? Anybody on internet participation? There being none, we've moved on with this. We're set with this. Now let's move on to the last item of the day. And that's the sale of a city-owned property at 1219 Clarion Avenue. I've had some discussions with the gentleman who wishes to do this. I see a lot of benefits to this, but I'm going to, reviewing you that we had 3 pieces of property that we put up for sale. One was purchased with a house now on it. The other 2 were questionable due to topography, water, blah, blah, blah. And so we then have a gentleman now who's come forward on this. What I'm surprised at is he says he's going to build this thing for $189 a square foot, which I think, maybe we should be hiring him or whoever he's using for the city to get involved with the housing. And so you may want to give his name, Lindsay, to somebody because.
Very well.
Okay, so I'll turn this over to City Manager Horn for information.
Yeah, so based on input, we have sought proposals. So we did a request for proposals for this property. The second time we did it in 2021, we did not receive any bids. So we sent it out again in 2022 after we received some word that there was some interest in it. So we had 1 bid, Mr. Baumhart. And you can see his proposal in front of you. We certainly we have no needs for this particular parcel of property and certainly recommend putting that back on the tax rolls as appropriate. Moving ahead.
There is a purchase agreement in your packet.
There's not.
If you have,
There's not.
Oh, there is.
No, what the resolution, because Jim was out of the office a little bit, so we did not get to that point. The resolution authorizes the mayor to execute the purchase agreement as compiled by the city attorney. So one question that Jim had as we talked today going over the agenda was if you wanted any sort of sunset or reversion clause in the agreement. Personally, I don't necessarily want the property back. But if you all thought you needed to put something back in there, certainly he could address that in the purchase agreement.
Mr. Bummer, do you have a plan on timing at all?
Given that we're getting a little late in the season, I'm hoping to get a geotechnical survey done here yet in the fall.
Okay.
Challenging.
Okay.
I mentioned going with Pier Foundation. If I've got the design and engineer for the Pier Foundation, I could possibly get the piers drilled before the ground froze. So
Otherwise, you would be starting it in the spring.
Starting in the spring.
Mhm. Zach, do you have any input on sunset clause on this?
No, I'm comfortable with whatever you guys think is appropriate. I think, as we've seen the constraints with getting help, that's about it. So.
I think it's important to have a pattern though of us setting some kind of clause. Because that way, when we do it, we're consistent with everything that we do for development. Even if it's a 2-year. Get it done within 2 years of this date.
Or even maybe check in, seeing what the challenges have been, if there's no progress. After a couple of years, because we know the challenges of labor and things.
So check in 2 years or something. Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I just have a question. What is the thinking behind having a sunset clause in this particular circumstance? I don't completely understand it respectfully.
Well, we've had it on pretty much we've had it on most developments that we've had.
I think the question here is we really had no interest in this parcel, and so maybe it doesn't really fit.
So if he doesn't build it and he buys it for 2,500, it's done. Okay.
But we'll proceed as directed.
Sounds good. Do I have a motion?
I have a question.
Derek.
Yeah, maybe Ms. Walker should go, because I remember in our discussions of this previously that Ms. Walker raised I thought a very legitimate point of that salt shed area is going to be moved, and potentially there's some future use with that new parcel area, and then this parcel being adjoining to it or adjacent to it. That there would be some potential future value.
It's not.
Yes, it is. So as part of the DPW reconstruction project, the gardens would move across the street and the salt sheds would be removed and go back across the street to where the new DPW building is going to go. So there'll be gardens there versus a salt shed and possibly a kayak input, and then your yard waste drop off. Would you mind being next to the community gardens?
Yeah, I know we reviewed this from staff. Mike has no concerns or issues, doesn't need the parcel for connectivity or anything like that.
Mr. Shield.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to this plan. I do think maybe the sunset clause is the benefit of that is a stated desire to see it developed. I think it's a great solution, and I wish Mr. Bumgarner a lot of luck. But maybe the sunset clause would just be our way of saying a stamp of what we hope the use should be. That throwing that out there.
Ms. Walker.
Thanks, Mayor. I think I've been talking with Norm throughout this whole process, and I am really impressed that, initially you had discussed wanting to go with a smaller footprint, but based on the new ordinance changes and allowing 600 square feet is our policy now in the city of Petoskey, and he totally met that without asking for a variance or any kind of special anything for this development of this property. And I think based on his budget and how it's lined out, I think this could be another potential model potential for what affordable single-family homes could potentially look like. So I'm very excited about the possibilities of this coming to fruition. And if city council feels like, a sunset clause is a good place to start, there's a whole list of development properties that we would also want to review, I would assume, in that same context, so.
Do I have a motion?
I have one more
One
question.
more
if I
question,
could. Yeah.
Mr. Moore.
So given that this gentleman is proposing to build on wetlands, I just want to be assured that we're selling the property as is. So that's just something I think is important to have on the record. It also may present more difficulties for the timeline that this takes to build too. I would say that as an aside.
Ms. Walker.
It's not a wetland, but the water table's really high there because you have that western slope coming down from Willis and Clarion there and across the street to where you are. So I don't think you technically have any wetland on your property, but I'm sure if you're going to do a geological assessment and have soil borings done, it would determine if that was really considered a wetland or if it would be just, high water table. Because I know that adjacent to you, a little bit to the south, there is, on private property, there is some wetlands, very defined reeds and bulrushes and things like that to just a little bit to the south of you. But I'm assuming that in your soil borings, you will determine if it is actually a wetland or just a high water table.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a peer foundation, the engineer wants to determine that. That's what I sort of determined I wanted, but the engineer wants to make sure it's best out.
Yeah, I would only note that that was in the building proposal from Mr. Baumhart. That's where that information was, that it contained wetlands.
Do I have a motion or Ms. Walker?
I'll be happy to make a motion, Mayor, to approve moving forward with the purchase agreement on 1219 Clarion Avenue.
Mr. Wagner. A motion from Ms. Walker and a second from Mr. Wagner. Any other discussion, council?
Was that with sunset or without?
That's without the sunset at this point, unless nobody added it in on the motion. Okay, so it's without, okay, that's fine. And no other discussion. Public, do you wish to weigh in on this? Nobody online either. I take it to city clerk back for roll.
Walker,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Demore,
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, and congratulations. Last on the agenda. City council comment, and I'll start with, jump around and we'll start with ward number 2, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for council, city staff. Is anybody going to the MLL conference this week?
I am.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for representing us.
Yes.
No further comments.
Ms. Walker, Ward 4.
No comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner, Ward 3.
No comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Ward 1.
We'll end the suspense. No comments in Ward 1.
Wow. My only comment is enjoy the weather because it's supposed to get better for about 5 days here on the weekend, sunny weather. So no further business come before this council. I call this meeting adjourned. Get out.